Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are finishing our journey to Endgame with Endgame itself. And I am going to give a spoiler-free review here. Like I said, I do want people to go see this movie because I did love this movie. I thought this movie was amazing. It's a great companion piece to Infinity War. If you're going into it and expecting kind of another Infinity War, you are not going to get that. You are going to get something very different, but it is still very good nonetheless. Now, I'm just going to kind of go through the characters and kind of how I felt that they were dealt with, because this movie was really supposed to center around the six original Avengers. It's not really supposed to go to many of the extenuous characters, although Rocket Raccoon and Scott Lang do have a bit of character moments in this, and this could have very long-lasting repercussions to the MCU. And again, if you go see the film, you will understand why. Um, but let's get into it. So, first of all, special effects looks great. They look great. There, again, you can see no seams. Nothing looks cheesy. I think they did use a decent amount of practical effects in some of the scenes, but for the most part, it looks really, really good. All the fight scenes, the last battle looks great. Uh, I, again, they do a really good job with all the CGI characters, like Thanos. They all come off very well. Ultimately, the visuals for it are amazing. It has a bit of a darker color tone overall than Infinity War did. Uh, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And again, it feels kind of like, how do I put it? Uh, the color of the movie, the color they've been advertising has mostly been purple. And people, if you watch the movie, you kind of get like that purple kind of sad feel to some of the stuff that's going on, but it's not outrageously prevalent, but you kind of feel that. Um, like I said, the aesthetics are really great. The characters have all basically gone through hell because of the end of the Infinity War snap, so we kind of see where they're sitting. The stuff they do with some of the extenuous characters like Hawkeye and Black Widow are really, really good. I enjoy those. And like I said, we see a side of both of those characters that we haven't seen before. And we get to see those two specifically interact in ways that we haven't really seen a whole lot of before, other than maybe the first Avengers film. But it's, again, they both play their characters perfectly. I like where they put them in this film because you get to see them progress as characters, and ultimately, come to maybe not the end, but to the advance in their journeys. So again, it's very I enjoy it. I thought it was very good, the way that they treated those two specifically. The only character I kind of had an issue with was Thor, but I'm gonna try and be vague about that. Um, but then you go into Banner and Hulk, which again at the end of Infinity War, he was kind of battling with the Hulk and stuff like that. You get to basically see what happens with that relationship between him and Hulk and how that works itself out. And if you've seen the spoilers, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I liked that. I thought it was interesting, and I thought that they handled it very well in terms of the acting with Mark Ruffalo. And like I said, I like Mark Ruffalo as a Hulk. I think he's a great Hulk, and I think that now that you're kind of progressing that further, I'd like to see if they take that somewhere. Maybe with a future film, which I kind of spoiled a little bit there because he does live. But going forward from that, the stuff they did with Captain America and Iron Man, all perfect. I have nothing to say other than it is perfect in every way. How both of those characters progress through this film. And then leads us to Thor. Thor. kind of takes a step back in this movie. And again, if you watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. He has a few really good scenes, and I really liked him at the end of the movie. But through the progression of the film, I was kind of okay. This isn't as good as I probably should be. Some of the humor with him didn't really hit that well, like it did in Ragnarok and like it did in the first Infinity War a little. But moving on from that, just the film itself, it gives you a feel of finality. Like if they wanted to, they could cut the MCU off here, and that would be fine. You get to see, what happens to all the major characters and everything like that. It's kind of like, a branching ending to a video game almost, where you get to see like all of the extenuous characters, what happens to them, and all that. So they do a very good job at kind of giving it some finality to this whole long journey that's lasted 22 films now. Um, and this whole finality with this movie is great. A few of the characters do have finality, but for the most part, if you wanted to end it here, I would have no problem with it because I think that it's a great ending to a great series of films. But I know they're going to be carrying on for quite a few years after this. So the other thing is, it does have a 3 hour runtime. It does not feel like 3 hours. I will say that. I felt like I sat through about a 2 hour movie. But when I got out, I had seen it was actually 3 hours, and that is the sign of a good 3 hour film. Is you don't feel those 3 hours because you were engaged so much in what is going on the screen. And again, it keeps your interest. It keeps your interest in a very great way because you get to see these character developments again. Infinity War didn't really have a whole crap ton of character developments. A little bit with Tony Stark, or actually a decent amount with Tony Stark and some stuff with Spider-Man and stuff. But for the most part, you didn't have a ton of character development. This movie has a lot of character development because, again, people, the Brolin, the not Brolin, the Russo brothers have both said this, that the first movie was really Thanos' film, and this is the film for the Avengers. And it reflects that, where a majority of this film, we don't see Thanos for a lot of this movie. We see him off and on through certain segments, but I wouldn't say that he has a very. I don't think that he has a big presence in terms of screen time. Not nearly as much as he did in Infinity War, but he's always there and he's always looming. But the majority of the story revolves around the Avengers themselves. And again, we get to see some other stuff. Rocket has a good amount of character development in this. I really like what they did with him. Rhodey is in this. Again, he's come back because of the events of Infinity War. He's come back to, now the Avengers are a unit again. There's very little Captain Marvel, which I was actually very happy with. She's kind of, again, whenever she's on screen, she's just kind of annoying. She's not really. Again, I thought she would have a bigger role in this than what she did. She probably has maybe 10 minutes of screen time out of a 3 hour movie, and most of that is at the very beginning. There's not a lot. There's not a lot that they really do with her. So I was glad to see that in some extent because I didn't really care for her in her film. But she kind of does this whole thing where, again, whenever she's on the screen, she kind of tries to assert herself, and basically the other Avengers kind of just put her in her place, more or less. She really only shows up at the very beginning and the very end of the film, which I was happy with, especially at the very end of the film, because I guess this is a spoiler. She gets her ass handed to her by Thanos, which was pretty funny. So aside from that, the film I thought did a very, very good job. I enjoyed the film, and I thought that bringing all those characters together again and splitting this into two films, because honestly, I agree with the idea of splitting this into two films because Infinity War is so much different from this movie, but they do complement each other very much. So I can understand why they didn't call it Infinity War Part 2, because it really has a bit of a different feeling to it, and having it have a different title like Endgame, I think works very well. So out of the film, I I like it a tiny, tiny bit less than Infinity War, because Infinity War was very fast paced and there was a lot of action and stuff like that, and it was a little bit shorter. Even though I love both of the movies, I think I'm going to have to give it a 9.9 out of 10 in total for my rating for this film. But I can't stress enough that it is an amazing film. And like I said, it's literally splitting hairs between this and Infinity War for me. That's the only reason why I rank it a little bit less, is because I'm splitting hairs. Basically, I have to nitpick in order to decide which is better. If I could give them both a 10 out of 10 and have them both be tied, I probably would. But just to kind of make it so that, you know what, screw it, they are tied. They're both 10 out of 10s. They're both great films, but they're both great films in different ways. So go watch it. It's in theaters. It's going to be in theaters for a while. It's already made over $1 billion worldwide. This thing is a juggernaut. This thing is going to crush everything that sits in its path. I hope there was not any big movies that are going to be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, although I think Detective Pikachu comes out 3 weeks from now. So that might get hammered a little bit if this thing is still going as strong as it is, but it'll be interesting because I think Avatar has its work cut out for it as the top grossing film of all time. So that's my review of Endgame. Go see it. Like I said, it's a great film. Go see it. Go watch it, especially if you're a fan of superhero films or a fan of the MCU in general. Go see it. It's a must see. So again, if you have any thoughts on Endgame, leave it in the comments. If you or if you have any thoughts on the MCU in total, leave it in the comments. And we will see you again next time. The next MCU film that comes out is Spider-Man: Far From Home, so I'll have a review for that probably whenever that comes out. But remember to leave a like on the video, hit the bell for notifications, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?